Hello to everyone who's watching this video. I got asked to make a tutorial on embroidery by two people, Soki and Rania to be exact, so if you two are seeing this one's for you. But obviously anyone can watch it. I'm gonna go into the littlest details of the whole process, so if someone's watching who has never embroidered before and might want to start a new hobby, I hope this video helps you to get into it. I want to preface that I'm not a professional though. I learned embroidery randomly and mostly just do it for fun, so there might be better or more efficient ways to do it. I'm just gonna show you what I do personally. So, to embroider, first you need an embroidery hoop. Any size is fine. For big projects, obviously a bigger one works best. I recently bought these little ones because I've been embroidering a lot of little designs for my videos. But depending on the size of the fabric that you're going to use and the design you want, you can get an embroidery hoop to match it. I definitely recommend embroidery hoops with a screw though, because this helps with securing the fabric so it won't move around while sewing. As you can see with this one, it doesn't have a screw, so there are a lot of gaps in between where the fabric just moves around too much, which you don't want. The second thing you need is fabric. The fabric I use is usually random. Some are more sturdy than others, like for example this denim one. But I just use whatever fabric I can get my hands on, to be honest. Obviously, if you want to embroider directly on a piece of clothing, you will just use that. And then thirdly, you need needle and a thread in the colors you want. Usually there's specific embroidery thread that people use. You might have seen it, it's like thicker. Here's a picture of it, but I just use the thread you can buy for sewing. It's thin, but I like working with it because it's thin and it makes little details more visible in my opinion. But that is also up to you, obviously. Now that every component is ready, we put on the design that we want. So for this, there's different ways. What I personally do is, if it's thin fabric like this, I like to just hold it onto the screen of my laptop like this and trace whatever design I want. But that is only possible because it's small and it's easy to move around and it's see-through. And usually if you want to embroider on clothing, that is not the case. So for clothing, I usually do the same tracing trick, but on paper. And then from the paper, I put it onto the fabric, and I will show you how I do that now. So in a case like this, I take the paper with my design on it and put it onto the fabric. And I start going shape by shape, cutting each piece off and drawing it onto the fabric. This is a very tedious task and can easily lead to mistakes, so I don't recommend it. But if you don't have anything else, this is definitely what you can do. But if you have the money for it, you can also buy water-soluble embroidery sheets. Here's a picture of it. I've read that these are very good and easy to handle. You can buy them online or maybe in a shop near you. I don't know. I've only ever seen them online. And it's basically a sheet of paper that you can put your design on. And once you are done embroidering on it, you put it into water and it dissolves like magic. There's no smudging and it basically leaves you with a clean design. Like I said, I've not used them yet myself, but I'm glazing them so much because I feel like it will make it much easier, and I'm contemplating of buying them myself. Oh, and obviously if it's an original design, you can just draw it yourself on the fabric too, or maybe you can draw it on despite it not being original. I'm just saying that even if you can't draw yourself, don't worry, you can trace a design to get what you want. So now that your design is ready, we place it into the embroidery hoop. So we put the inner circle first, then the fabric, and then we secure it with the outer circle. And then we secure everything with a screw, and we can basically start embroidering. So for embroidery, there's tons of stitches that you can do. If you look up tutorials on type of embroidery stitches, there's tons of videos that will show you different ways. I mainly use two of them that I will show you in a bit, but it's obviously up to you which one you want to do. They have different effects, so depending on what you want your design to look like, you can use a different type of stitch, or maybe a specific type of stitch just resonates with you more that you want to use. So don't think you have to do it the same way as me. I'm just going to show you what I do, but you can be as creative as you want. What I mainly use are the Satin Stitch for the color fillings and kind of a Backstitch for the black outlines. I will show you how I do a Satin Stitch first. So let's take this Dazai as an example. I want to embroider his bandages with this white thread. I basically start from the back, from the right side, and I put my needle in, and from there I have to make a straight line to the left, and then I go back in from the right side, from the back, and go again to the left side in the front. And I just continue doing that until the space is filled. But what I also do, which really isn't necessary and you don't need to do that, is that if the thread twists like this, I take my needle and I try to put it into 2 straight lines. I just like how it looks more, but you don't have to do that. Like I said, this is just a me thing. But yeah, back to the satin stitch, I just try to put every line as straight as possible next to each other. And if there are outlines in the middle of it, I just leave it blank so I can put the black outline on it later. And as you can see, I'm getting to a point where I have to kind of part ways. So I focus on one side, which is the left side in this case, and I just continue the satin stitch from there. So that it kind of looks like this. Be careful of any knotting in the back though, because that tends to happen sometimes. In rare cases where I don't have enough thread, I sometimes do it the same way a machine would do it though. As you notice, the usual way shows the thread lines in the back. So if you want to save thread, you can just put in your needle next to the spot that you left it in. And this basically limits the lines in the back. As you can see on top in here, it looks like a normal satin stitch in the front, but the back looks empty. But you should be careful that your fabric is durable for that, because you wouldn't want it to rip if it's a thin fabric. But yeah, that's the satin stitch. I do want to say though, I feel like with clothing or fabric that you're putting to use a lot, it's best to keep the fillings short. And what I mean with that is, if you have long lines like this, they kind of look wobbly the more you move it around. So when it's a piece of clothing, I would suggest using smaller lines, which gives it a cleaner look overall. If you're doing a home decorative hoop like this though, it doesn't matter that much since the fabric stays secured on the hoop anyways. Now the second type of stitch I use is the backstitch, and I use the backstitch to outline my pieces. And for that I use this black thread, and I basically start anywhere where I want to have a black outline. In this case I start on the right corner and I put my needle in from the back, and I basically just pull it to wherever I want the line to be. And once I put it back into the fabric, I take the needle and I start further away from where I left off and go back into the spot where I originally went in. And I just continue that process until I have a continuous line. As you can see on the back, it creates a continuous line as well. That's why maybe you've noticed in most of my pieces I don't have that continuous line, and that is because I sometimes wing my backstitch, but I will show you how I do that as well. So instead of putting the needle in further away, I basically put it where I left off with my line in the front, and then I kind of do a zigzag going back and further away after. And this focuses on a continuous line on the front more so than it does on the back. As you can see with this, it creates gaps, but if you're embroidering a piece where you won't see the back, this definitely does its job. Now that's it for the main stitch types that I use, but it's up to you which one you want to do. But I recently also used long and short stitches for my Zenitsu piece, which I want to yap about a little bit as well, so if you're interested you can keep watching. If not, it's fine if you want to close the video here as well. So I usually go for a satin stitch because it looks cleaner to me, but in rare cases we have an example like Zenitsu where I feel like the long and short stitch works better. This is why I say that you should look at different type of stitches and see what speaks to you the most, because you decide which works best for your design. The long and short stitch basically fills in a shape with long and short stitches. So you go in from the back, do a line, and then go in from the back again and do a shorter line next to it. So it looks something like this. And once you have done your first color, you go in with the second color and basically do short stitches where you have long ones and long stitches where you have short stitches. And this kind of creates an ombre effect and works perfectly because Zenitsu's hair has these black lines. So yeah, that was me yapping. I don't know if this was helpful, but I hope it was. If you have questions or things you guys didn't understand, feel free to ask me in the comments. I'll try to explain it better there. And I want to thank you guys for listening. I hope it was helpful.